Welcome to Our College, Your Voices. I'm your host, Kara Monroe. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you that we are building a community here inside of Ivy Tech using the new Microsoft Teams tool that was just rolled out. So if you usually turn off as I begin the ending credits, as I know some of you do, stick around just a little while longer today so you can learn how to join our new Microsoft Teams listener community. And now on to today's episode. The Indiana STEM LSAP, or NLSAP, which is the Lewis-Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation, consists of 3 research institutions, IUPUI, Indiana University Bloomington, and Ball State University, 2 four-year regional universities, IU Northwest and IU South Bend, and Ivy Tech Community College, Indianapolis, are working together to increase the participation and advancement of underrepresented students in STEM disciplines. Today, we're going to be talking with Dr. Nathan Alves, Assistant Professor in the Department of Emergency Medicine at Indiana University School of Medicine, and 2 Ivy Tech students, Oriana Estevez-Ruiz and Carmen McGee, who have been working in his lab this summer. Before we meet our panel, we have one additional note for today's podcast. This material is based upon work supported by the National Science Foundation under grants number 1618-408. Any opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in this material are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Science Foundation. Today's podcast can be shared via social media and web-based channels. With all of that business out of the way, let's meet our panel. First up, Michelle Quirk.
Hi, I'm Michelle Quirk. I'm the project manager for Indiana LSAMP. And my role at Indiana LSAMP is overseeing the 6 campuses that recruit the students for our program. And we have an annual conference in October that we host. And this year, our annual conference will be October 25th through the 27th in Indianapolis at the Keystone, the Crossing at the Sheraton. We love to have students from all of our campuses come together and share their experiences and have managed professional development workshops and different things like that. So that's my story.
Excellent. Welcome, Michelle. Dr. Nathan Alves. Good morning, Dr. Alves. How are you?
Very good. Nice to be here. I'm excited to be part of this podcast.
Wonderful. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So I'm actually the first and only non-physician tenure-track faculty member in the Department of Emergency Medicine. And there's about 100 clinical faculty members, and I conduct translational research primarily in the antibody modification area and in clot digestion kind of applications.
Very cool. I understood very little of that, but it sounds very cool. So I hope we learn more about that today. And let's meet our 2 students, Oriana Estevez-Ruiz. Good morning, Oriana.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
So my name is Oriana. I am going to graduate from Ivy Tech with my associate in biotechnology at the end of the summer. After this internship, I need the hours. And then I'll be going into IUPUI to get my bachelor's in biotech as well. And then from there, I'm looking into doing research, hopefully getting my PhD.
Excellent. And did you walk in graduation in May, or will you come back and walk in December?
I did not. I am the slacker that did not turn in the application on time.
Oh,
that is me.
Come back and walk in December, though, with us? I think you can still.
I don't know. I haven't looked into it.
All right. Well, let's find out. I'd love to see a graduation. And our other student with us today is Carmen McGee. Hi, Carmen. How are you?
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I am 1 year into the Associate of Science and Biotechnology degree. And so I still have another year to go. And then I'm looking into transferring to IUPUI to continue to get my prereqs to go to medical school.
Excellent. Very good. I'm so excited to have all of you here on the podcast. We do have profiles of the students, all of the students participating in the LSAMP program, and we'll put those in our show notes for our listeners. So let's dig into the conversation here today. So Dr. Alves, this is your first summer having Ivy Tech students in your research lab, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. So what motivated you to reach out and begin working with Ivy Tech students as members of your research lab?
Sure. So while I would love to take credit as me being the initiator, like most good things in life, you kind of fall into things. I had a really good, talented student who joined my lab when I was a brand new faculty member. And she sort of opened my eyes to a lot of different programs and kind of brought me into the LSAMP community. And then this Ivy Tech transition has sort of been a logical addition this summer.
And Michelle, she was telling me that student is an Ivy Tech alum, correct? Do I remember that correctly? And remind me of her name.
Celia Ochoa.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Very good.
She also received the Chancellor's Undergraduate Research Award this past year and started working at Eli Lilly just a couple weeks ago.
Outstanding. Very good. To Carmen and Oriana, how is your Ivy Tech education? Carmen, you're sort of at the beginning.
Right,
Oriana, you're ready to graduate. How has your Ivy Tech education prepared you for the work that you're doing in the summer research lab?
Just like you said, being in the beginning of the program, I had a teacher, shout out Todd Murphy,
Yes.
who told me in my first biology class, which it was a cellular and molecular class, and that's when I fell in love and I knew I wanted to be in this field. And so he said, these are your foundational classes. So they might seem, you not as exciting as like a 200 level class or whatever, but you really need to grasp these concepts. And being in the summer research, I really understand what he's saying. It's like we're getting to a way deeper level at the summer internship, but just knowing those foundational things has been very helpful. But also, then there's nothing that can really prepare you for the real world experience. So
we'll dig into that more later because I want to hear some of those stories. Oriana?
Yeah, it's kind of like Carmen said, Ivy Tech has clearly set up a good foundation to build upon. And I mean, being at the end of the program, the struggle has been real. Like there hasn't been, the last 2 semesters I've taken 17 and 18 credits. So it's been nonstop being in the lab almost every day through the week. So that prepared me to know that first of all, it let me know that it was something I wanted. I never thought I didn't even know what biotechnology was until I got to Ivy Tech. Same person, Todd Murphy, was the one that pushed me into getting into the biotech program. And at the Lawrence campus, they're very good at kind of letting you work on your own. And that has been very helpful in the lab because I'm kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's not any different. Sometimes, yes, I do freak out because the machines are a lot more expensive. So I'm like, if I break it, it'll be a whole nother deal. But it's kind of like, I'm used to it at this point. And the knowledge, yes, I have learned a lot in the last 7 weeks of my life. But the basic knowledge has been there. And I'm very thankful for that.
For all of you, what have you learned thus far?
Antibodies, protein. I mean, I've learned a lot about like scientific terms in general. There's like at least 2 new words every day. And I've grown a lot professionally. And then I've learned a lot about the research world because I've done independent research before, but it's nothing like here's your whole project, design your whole experience. You're on your own. And then in general, like the whole science, like the protein, the knowledge behind the project.
And you taste failure for the first time. Typically in this kind of program, most school laboratory experiences are designed such that they're supposed to succeed. You know the outcome. I think it's hard for students sometimes to hear when they come and ask a question, you're like, what should it be? Is it A or B? And it's like, well, we don't know. We wouldn't be doing this if we knew.
Right.
So I think that can be an interesting learning curve for younger learners.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to add on to that and say that you can go through class and you get an A or a B, or you get the question right or wrong. But like Dr. Alves is saying, it's not like that in the real world. It's like you have to just learn more critical thinking and thinking outside of the box. And it's not just an A or B answer. So.
And as far as my experience, the program is centered around research and them learning how to conduct research and be efficient scientists. But I found that some of the most rewarding part for me, and I think for the students, the more long-lasting stuff is around the professional development, how to interact via email, how you're perceived when you do a certain thing. I think students don't hear that in school. You submit the assignment through the way that they tell you to submit the assignment. There's no boundaries that they need to learn about.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot about yourself too. It's scary how much I didn't know about things. Because like Carmen said, it's like A or B, you pass or you fail kind of thing. But like the unknown, I've been learning a lot that I don't like the unknown and I have to get over it.
But that's a really important life skill. And we talk about it in just a leadership context of the ambiguity of there's not a right and wrong answer here. You've got to make a decision. And so that's such an important skill for you guys. That's awesome. What else?
It's not only just the science that we're learning, but the mental and emotional side of looking at how you interact in the world and how you come across, and just having those professional. Like I thought I was very professional, and I don't think I'm bad or, not professional, but just like having things pointed out to me that I never would have noticed about myself has been an amazing learning opportunity.
From a mentor perspective, it's important, I think, to point out a lot of things. And I think the students are not used to it. And so in some ways it can kind of drag on them. So you need to then, kind of rear it back a little bit, tell them they're doing a good job, but these are all things that they should also pay attention to. I think Michelle would kill me if I didn't say sort of my tagline of sorts, but I'm sort of high caring, but high demand as well. And I think that students aren't necessarily prepared for that. And it's not something you can train them to understand. They just have to experience it and then see.
As long as they know you care, that's the most important thing first.
Right.
And then those expectations absolutely can come from there. It's a wonderful faculty presence.
It's been really good overall. Like, he's the right amount of caring and pushing. It's kind of like, almost like your dad, like, hey, I hate you because you're telling me not to do this, but I know you're doing it for the right thing. It's like, oh. But overall, I feel like also you learn to interact with other people at different level. Like at first, I'm usually like very outgoing and I want to do this and this is what I think and it's my way or no way. And I'm used to, I kind of push people my way a lot of times. And I'm used to like in any other lab, it's like, okay, here's what I want to do. And I get the whole class to do the way I want. But now I'm in a lab where everyone, it's like has a lot more knowledge than me, has a lot more experience. So it's kind of like learning to interact with all those personalities. It's something that I had never experienced because through the program, you're with the same people for 2 years. So these people, like, how to act with them. And it's interesting to see how just one question can be answered 20 different ways depending on who's answering the question and how they understand it.
Dr. Alves, you work with students at all levels and students, you guys have talked about this a little bit. So from associates through doctoral programs, what traits do you look for when you're selecting a research scholar?
I think it's really important to get somebody who cares about a topic. So typically the first questions I'll ask people is what do they care about? What drives them? I think there's sort of two categories of people that are interested in research. The ones that have like a calling, like I really need to work on left toe itis. And that's what they go for. Right. And that's it. Or I really need to have a more broad societal impact. So the actual subject matter is not as relevant necessarily. And they can satisfy that desire through a lot of different means. So I think it's important from a student perspective, just a little shout out of sorts, getting in front of people, talking to people is really important. The resume doesn't necessarily give that information.
Right.
And in this case, both these Ivy Tech students were brought to me. Essentially, they did a lab tour. Mm-hmm. So I was able to essentially interview them without them realizing perhaps that they were being interviewed, which allowed them to be selected in my lab.
Can you guys talk a little bit about how you did come into this program and how you did get selected?
I ended up in his lab. The program in general was something that LSAM like pushes like and motivates you through the year. Like, like you want to do this. But I ended up in Dr. Alves' lab. We were at a meeting at UPUI and I knew Carmen was going to go tour it with Michelle. And I was like, hey, I just want to go too. It was more to get out of the meeting. I wasn't really expecting to get into his lab. But it turns out that when he started like talking about the lab, I didn't even know what lab it was. I was just going to a lab to get out of a meeting. And I was like, oh, I know. I actually I'm very interested in the research that he's doing. And it just went on like, okay, I kind of want this. And his personality at first, to me, it's very important to get along with the person that I'm working with, especially like the person that's above me, because sometimes like, okay, I know I'm not going to like everyone, or sometimes we're not going to think the same way. But if I don't think their values align with mine, it's a no-no for me because I can't be there. And yes, like from the get-go, everything he spoke about, the way he talked, and seeing how passionate he was. Like, there's nothing he says that it's not, like, he truly believes it in how passionate he is. And that's kind of motivational for me because I can't let him down. Like, he cares, so why should I not? And just the lab just worked out.
Yeah, I have a similar way that I got into it. I went to that meeting and I don't plan to transfer to IUPUI for a while. So I was a little irritated being
Mm-hmm.
there, like, why am I here? And then Michelle showed up and said she wanted to do a tour. And I thought, okay, maybe this will make it worth it. And it obviously has paid off hugely. I'm so glad that I went to that because we went into the lab and I didn't know a lot about what he was talking about as far as the research, but like Ori said, I just got a really good feeling from just I just keep thinking, or like I describe him as very approachable. So that was important for me to work for someone that I knew I could go ask questions and there wasn't going to be any big ego or like separation between different people in the lab.
We've heard from the students and from Dr. Alves about what you look for and how you got into the program. Michelle, would you talk to us a little bit about how students that are interested in the program could learn more about it?
LSAMP is located on 6 campuses, and each campus has a coordinator who puts together a slate of activities throughout the year. And sometimes those are career panels, or they'll have a call-out meeting when students arrive on campus. They can also just visit the website, which is indianalsamp.org, and click where it says Our Campuses and select the campus they're on. And then that should have pages that talk about the students, the contacts on the campus, the coordinator, the director, and also has a section to apply. So they can just click on the apply button and it pulls up and there's a set of questions they answer. And those are submitted to the campus personnel. And when they're setting up their programs, they look through those and look at the responses to see what their interest is in STEM, their GPAs. We have recognized degrees that we target for our program specifically, so we make sure that they're in there. If there's students who are interested in STEM who aren't in our programs, or if there's just students who are interested in learning about the professional development, they can be what we call campus members. And there's actually a link on the website that says just to click for campus members. And those don't have any criteria. That can be a student from any GPA, any ethnic, racial background, any of the majors. But we do like to have students involved because so many of the professional development, like the resume building and things like that, are universal. And we like to have a lot of different opinions and viewpoints at the meetings.
Excellent. Very good. And we'll put the website for Indian LSAMP in our show notes as well, so that is available to anybody that is looking for that. I guess for all of you, I had this question originally written just for Carmen Oriana, but I think any of you could talk about in the lab, you're working alongside of students from all different educational levels. What has that experience been like? You've talked a little bit about it, but dig into that a little bit more.
It's been amazing in general. It's motivational, and it feels nice to see that someone that is at a way higher level, it's so struggling, just like you are, just on a whole deeper level and with a different topic. Also, like Dr. Alves has shown us more than once, like, oh, I'm not just picking on you because you're the new undergrad. It's like he's straight through the board. Like he picks on everybody, not picking, but pushing you.
Right.
And they've been great help. They're always there to help us from simple things, from teaching me how to use an instrument to, hey, I don't think you're thinking the right way, to reviewing abstract papers. I mean, anything. They've been so helpful. Questions about how did you get into a PhD program, to med school, anything, you name it, they've been amazing to us.
Yeah, I would say very much similarly. At first I was a little intimidated, but like Ori said, once I saw Dr. Alves treats everyone the same, I was like, okay, we're all in the same boat together. Like if anything, we can band together. And
they don't team up too much against me.
But yeah, they're just so genuinely eager and to help. Like I so many times I've had the PhD person I'm working with just approach me and say, hey, do you need anything? And there's a medical student that's in our office as well, and he's just let me pick his brain, and you never feel like you're a burden or taking up too much time. Like they're just always available. So it's been awesome.
There's 2 different unique perspectives here. There's from the research level of the conducting research as a whole lab. My lab currently is comprised of 2 Ivy Tech students that are here talking, 1 IMPRS student who's a medical student in his 2nd year of medical school, 2 PhD students that are starting their 3rd year in chemical and biomolecular engineering PhD program at Purdue, but through me, my lab. And then I recently had a emergency medicine resident who also was doing a scholarly project graduate. So it provides a lot of opportunity for peer-to-peer mentoring, which is kind of unique, especially for people that are interested in the medical field. They can literally talk to people at all different levels. I also find that it's really interesting that the perspective makes a difference. So not everyone's going to approach the problem the same way. And putting 2 people together from very different perspectives and different backgrounds really does change the scientific output.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like that. And the interactions are different too. Each person is unique. Each mentorship opportunity is unique. Figuring out how to push each one the right way is really important.
All of you are exceptional scholars, and we said at the top of the episode that you're participating in a program receiving funding from the National Science Foundation related to being a member of an underrepresented population in the STEM fields. How do you think, or how has your participation broadened your understanding of diversity and belonging in STEM fields?
Well, for me, I feel like people of color, women, LGBTQ plus communities have been threatened, and their stories have been left out or silenced so much that, to me, it's really important to see other people in the room that look like me or maybe have a similar background. To me, just showing up like that is so important. And I think we still have a very, very long way to go, but just seeing that this sort of thing exists and knowing that, oh, that person over there across the room who looks like me is excited and is passionate and is getting to pursue their dream is like very empowering to me.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Carmen. And it's kind of like seeing the person. And I also with being Hispanic, I feel like a lot of times we tend to stick to our own people, and just going somewhere where you can identify with someone makes it a little easier. And for younger generations, being in the STEM, it's kind of like, oh, if she did it, why can I not do it? And also for research, sometimes you ask questions based on your background. So it broadens the way you think or the way you approach a problem in general. And it's nice knowing, like, with so much diversity, it might be the same issue, but Carmen might think of something that I won't think of, just for the simple reason that we grew up in different countries and our experience was not the same. And I think having a very diverse environment overall just makes the outcome better, because you put it's kind of like a hot spot. It's everything, it's in there.
I find it interesting that people ask, how is it different, mentoring URM students? And I think they're surprised when I'm like, it's not. And that's kind of the point. I think people expect it to maybe be different, but everyone is people, and they all have different motivations, and they all can accomplish the same things. So it's important to show the students that as well.
Yeah. Well, and you said your tagline is, tell us your tagline again.
Highly demanding and highly caring.
Yeah. And if you care first, that's the most important thing. So that's very good. What do you wish you'd known as you started your time for the students as a summer research scholar, or Dr. Alves this summer starting with community college students in your research lab?
Sure. So I will say that there is a bit of a difference from the community perspective versus IU School of Medicine. And part of this is level of learner, also level of prior experience. It doesn't really change a whole lot, but it just means that as a mentor, you need to be more aware that their experiences are different or their background is different, which can sometimes affect how you interact. So that was unique with Ivy Tech. Ivy Tech tends to be a little bit more non-traditional, much more so than IU School of Medicine or IUPUI, which is where most of my students primarily come from.
The one thing I think I would have been more prepared for failure. I wish I would have been okay with not knowing. Everything else, it's kind of it comes with time, and it's a learning process. But the one thing that's been the hardest on me, it's just not knowing what's next, the not being able to plan. But we're working on it. We're still going the right direction.
Okay. And is that from the failure? You have a failure, and so then you've got to figure out, okay, now do I look at the problem, or is that something different?
Well, no, in the experiment itself, it's kind of like Carmen mentioned earlier, in school, they give you an experiment and it's designed for it to be successful.
Right.
And now it's not only are you designing your own experiment, but even the people that you're expecting to have the answer to the question don't have the answer. So it's the unknown. And you might get some results and you're like, oh yeah, it looks great. But in reality, no, it does not look great. Or the other way around, you might think it's not what you want, but you still have to present the data that you got regardless of it being quote unquote good or bad.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be just letting go of that perfection or whatever I've learned and almost unlearning everything I learned in school, because it's just such a different experience that, like she said, it's not all gonna line up for you beautifully, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. So
I think the first time the students hear me say that you're supposed to be struggling is surprising.
This is hard.
Yeah.
If we could have solved it by now, we would have solved it.
It's a different struggle though. It's not the struggle you're used to, and it's because I thought I was struggling before, but it's like it's not. Like one thing, it's stressing over a chem final. That's a whole different struggle than struggling when you don't even know what you're struggling about. You're just struggling.
We never know when we record episodes where the conversation is going to take us. I love that you guys have talked so much about learning from failure and learning to be a little more comfortable with failure, because I think it's something we just don't do enough in education. So I hate that it's uncomfortable, because it is for all of us, but I'm so excited that you've gotten to have that experience, because it's so incredibly valuable.
So to sort of piggyback on that point, Oriana and Carmen are both in the process of putting together posters for the end of the LSAMP summer. We're nearing the end of this. And Oriana's like, well, what do I put on my poster? Like, do I have this data and this data? And I'm like, well, what about this whole other thing you did? And she's like, but it didn't work. And it's like, well, the point that it didn't work is now going to guide you or the next person into what not to do, or maybe perhaps the exact route to make it work. So of course that's useful scientific data. And of course it should be there. I mean, I think students are like, well, I wouldn't put a paragraph in an essay that I felt was bad. This is different. This is science. Not everything works, and things that don't work are also still useful.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, that's one of the things with research. It's a different type of learning. It's a different type of journey. And research is all about the unknown. And even you just think back to the astronauts. I mean, going somewhere that no one's gone before, being on your own, trying to traverse through this journey, it's really difficult. And that's one of the things, the main things at the end of this 8 weeks, is that we want them to take out of this experience is the comfort to explore, to grow, because that's what makes a great researcher. A great researcher has to write the ideas that no one's done before. And they also, again, documenting their failures is some of the strongest data that we can all pull together to get to the right answer, because we don't want to keep repeating the same mistake. So it's as important that we document those failures and share them with everyone to help them have a better path towards the answer, because that's how we all get to the same answer. But I think the strength is this program is they have a safe space to do that. And that is, it's guided by a leader. And while they're also learning to go through the science, they're also learning those soft skills to be a good leader. So when they do take that stage and they're the person running a lab, or they're a doctor, or they're a person who's a corporate CEO, they're a strong leader.
So we talked a little bit, you talked in your introductions about what's next for you. Can you dig into that a little bit more?
Well, first of all, for me, it's getting my bachelor's. I'm taking it a step at a time, even though I have to plan my whole life and present it to Dr. Alvis in 2 days. So I've been working on this. But no, just going into IUPUI and getting my bachelor's in biotechnology. And I know for a fact I want to continue to do research. I thought I wanted to do research, but now it's like, I know, like, this is something I want to do. I'm very passionate about it. It brings, like, there hasn't been a day that I woken up this whole summer that I have to go to the lab that I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go into the lab. It's kind of like, yes, I'm tired, but I want to go into the lab. And now I just have to find out, because I know I want to continue in research, but what do I want to do research on? So that's my next step, is figuring out what research do I want to do.
Oriana referenced this presenting her life to me in 2 days. So I gave both Carmen and Oriana an assignment essentially to map out from now through the future potential options. And instead of what I think most people traditionally do is what's your target and how do you get to it, I think it's more important to map out all of the options so you can see what you're choosing not to do, or what you can do if something doesn't happen that you expect. And I think it's really important to do that. And I think, you should be deliberate about your decisions. While there is a massive amount of unknown in the future, it's a really good exercise.
Excellent.
And I just like to follow up with that and say that is one of the reasons why Dr. Alvis is one of the strongest mentors we have, because I wish I could introduce every student to that philosophy when they're a sophomore. So many students I see are seniors and they want to start doing these exercises, but we know the most successful students, the well-prepared, the ones who can change trajectory and still be successful, are the ones who start getting this conversation when they're a sophomore. The early academic intervention is really key, and not just courses. I mean, mapping out multiple options shows you how to be the most efficient. It shows you how to double major. It shows you how to have a return plan if you do want to go back out and work. And so having somebody sit down and just asking you to explore everything versus just coming and do your coursework by semester, it makes them a better consumer, really, of education.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I think that this summer has taught me just to build my confidence a lot in the lab, because that was always something in class I just did better with the theory or the lecture side of things. And so I think it's changed my view of myself and what I'm capable of. So moving forward, I would like to just continue my prereqs for medical school, but this has definitely just shown me that maybe I do want to work in a lab, but we'll see. I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. So,
And you're going to come back to Ivy Tech in the fall.
Yes.
And finish your associate degree.
Yes, I'll be done in spring of 2020.
Excellent. So. Well, if I don't see you before that, I will look forward to seeing you at commencement in May of 2020.
Yes,
that's awesome. Very good.
I might wait and actually walk.
Let's walk together. Yeah.
That'd be fabulous. That would be awesome.
Hold hands.
I just kind of want to give a shout out to Dr. Bravos based on what Michelle said, because sometimes you think like mentoring, like he's only worried about career, but like on this planning exercise, or just in general, like he's giving us information from his personal life, and not only like career wise, he's like family life and everything. Like on this quote unquote presentation on Friday, like I've even marked down like when I'm planning on having kids, what I want to do with my life, traveling, whatnot. And I had never realized how much of an impact your personal life actually plays in your career. And I'm very thankful that he's actually had like sat down and shared with us like, yeah, so I made this decision, but my personal life was this, and here's what happened. I wish this would have happened. And I feel like Carmen and I got put in the right lab because he's very,
When you use such a good phrase at the top that you needed to be with somebody who aligned with your values, and to see someone as young as you are realizing that I need to work in a place that aligns with my values is so important. So kudos to you for that. And kudos to you, Dr. Aus, for thinking about and having students do that life mapping, because I think that's something so many people they don't do. They're just making decisions and they're not really looking at a whole plan. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, want to really avoid the two dreaded phrases of, I didn't know I could do that, or if I had known that, this isn't the way I would have gone.
Right.
I think that's really important.
Absolutely. We've had a great conversation today, and I just want to give all of you a chance to say any final thoughts in today's episode. So anything you want to add for today?
I just want to say thank you to both the students for taking that tour. They were like, why are you taking me to do this right now? And just because I have been working in higher ed for 15 plus years, I know that meeting the right person early enough to add extra courses or to do extra things or to just even explore you for a summer is a luxury sometimes not all of us have access to. And knowing that if you're put in the right place at the right time, it can really change your whole trajectory. So I just thank them for trusting me.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for taking us on the tour.
And I wanted to add, since I already have a bachelor's, like another career and like kind of a life ahead, like already behind me.
Right.
So it's been so amazing to come across this opportunity now that I'm starting over essentially. And it's just getting these opportunities right away and not feeling like I'm wasting time has been very valuable to my experience too.
Something additional, I find students sometimes when they don't really know what they want to do in the future, some of the best advice is just to be present. Sometimes just showing up will help you figure out things. Hearing opportunities, seeing people talk, being open to having discussions is really an important step in figuring out what you want to do.
Yes, be present. Trust me. I'm like, I've been in school for like 5 years and I don't have a degree, but you skip one. And it's like, it all kind of fell into place. It's like eventually from being there, I found out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to do it with and why this and why, like, just all kind of just being there takes you to the right place eventually. Mm-hmm. And we can't forget LSAMP at Ivy Tech. The whole, like, Donna she's a coordinator at Ivy Tech. And I own a lot of my success this last year, because there has been, I mean, she's been like my personal therapist. There were times last semester where I'm like, I'm quitting. I don't want to do this anymore. Like I have 3 finals set, and she's like, you can't do this. And she was like the one that pushed me to apply to the LSAMP at IUPUI. She literally looked at me one day and she's like, I'm going to be so disappointed in you if you just let this possibility go. Because I had the possibility to just do independent research at Ivy Tech, and I could still graduate because the hours counted the same. And she's like, just go do it. So Donna, if you listen to this, thank you for doing it.
What's Donna's last name?
Stalling.
Donna Stalling. Very good. Thank you for joining this episode of Our College, Your Voices. Again, I want to thank the members of today's panel. Once again, they are Dr. Nathan Owls from Indiana University Medical School, students Oriana Estevez Ruiz and Carmen McGee, and also from the LSAP Program Office at IUPUI, Michelle Quirk. I'm your host, Kara Monroe. You can connect with me on Twitter at KNM Tweets. Our producer is Ann Penny Valentine. Ann is on Twitter at Indy Penny. Our episode producer for this episode is Michelle Quirk, who's the project manager for LSAMP. Michelle, thank you so much for bringing this episode idea to us and for helping us shape this episode today. If, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we have a brand new way for our internal Ivy Techers to connect with the show. When we did our annual listener survey last year, we asked our listeners if they'd like a private community to talk about the show, and the answer was a resounding yes. I am excited to say that we can now offer that thanks to the Office of Information Technology's work in rolling out Microsoft Teams across Ivy Tech. So here is how to join if you'd like to check it out. Open up Microsoft Teams on your computer, log in if you haven't done so before, click the Teams button on the left-hand side of the Microsoft Teams screen, look down to the bottom of the screen, and you should see a button that says Join or Create a Team. Click on that button and then click the button for the Our College, Your Voices listener community. And that's it. You're in. Connect with us for discussion of each episode, give input on future episodes so you can help shape an episode like this one, or just chat with other like-minded podcast aficionados. This is available right now only to our faculty and staff members at Ivy Tech. It's not yet available to student listeners or our external partners. We will keep trying to find a great way to expand our platform to include even more people once we ensure that we can have a good, safe place for folks to chat, and that we can manage the additional work of it. And all of our old connection methods still work. Let me run through those with you. You can reach us by email at ourcollegeyourvoices@ivytech.edu. Don't forget, you can leave us a voicemail. It is the loneliest voicemail box on the planet, but you can leave us a voicemail at 317-572-5049. That number again is 317-572-5049. Our website is ivytech.edu/podcast. Production assistance for this and every episode is provided by Becky Campbell, Sarah DeWitt, and the Ivy Tech Community College marketing team. And our podcast concept is by Matthew Pittman. Theme music, recording, and post-production services are provided by the amazing Jen Eads from the Brassy Broadcasting Company. And we will talk to you next time on Our College, Your Voices.